Final pitches have been made in swing states, and now tens of millions of Americans are casting their votes for either the pairing of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz or that of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. The campaign has ended for a hard-fought race for the White House, and the winner likely to be decided by just a handful of states. Some 80 million votes have already been cast, but it remains a virtual dead heat for Democratic and Republican nominees. 7 states are in play, the biggest of which is Pennsylvania, with 19 electoral votes. And it was there that Vice President Kamala Harris held her final campaign rally.
Our campaign has tapped into the ambitions and the aspirations and the dreams of the American people. We are optimistic and we are excited about what we can do together. And we know it is time for a new generation of leadership in America.
Mr. Trump also made a stop in Pennsylvania's Pittsburgh, but wrapped up his campaign in Michigan, as he has done in his last 2 runs for office.
But we don't have to settle for weakness and incompetence and decline and decay. That's a nice word, decay. That's what's happening. That's a nice word, decay. Can you imagine? And nobody will question it because it's true. With your vote tomorrow, we can fix every single problem our country faces and lead America and lead the world to new heights of glory.
There are multiple projections for the multiple scenarios in which we would see either a Harris or Trump victory. But where U.S. voters actually vote may be more consequential than who they actually vote for. And that's because of the Electoral College.
But we don't have to.
In U.S. elections, even if a candidate wins the popular vote, they might still not win the presidency. That has happened 4 times in history, twice this century. In the 2000 presidential poll, Democratic Party flag bearer Al Gore got 500,000 more votes than his Republican rival, George W. Bush. But Mr. Gore ended up losing. In 2016, Hillary Clinton won 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. She lost as well. The reason? The U.S. Electoral College. America's so-called founding fathers set it up in 1787, a compromise between those who wanted Congress to elect the president and those who backed the full power of a popular vote. It was also a balancing act between the more populous North and the more slave-reliant South. The founding fathers assigned a certain number of electoral votes to each state, and this has remained largely unchanged. So when Americans cast their ballots, they are not, in fact, choosing a candidate, but are instead voting for the way in which their state electors will vote. And in most states, that's 48 of them, the winner of the popular vote takes all of that state's electors. Maine and Nebraska allocate 2 electoral college votes to their popular vote winner, and then 1 electoral vote to the popular vote winner in each congressional district. That's 2 for Maine and 3 for Nebraska. Countrywide, the Electoral College consists of 538 electors. It adds up to 1 for each member of Congress, plus 3 for the District of Columbia. Each state is then allotted a certain number of electors dependent on the population. Now, California is the most populous state. It has 54 electors for its roughly 39 million residents. Wyoming is the least populous state. It has 3 electors for its roughly 600,000 people. This means 1 electoral delegate in California essentially representing more than 3 times the population than 1 delegate would in Wyoming. So voters in Wyoming, in effect, hold far more influence. Opponents of the Electoral College system say it leads to candidates focusing their campaigning disproportionately on just a few so-called swing states, such as Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. In fact, the path to the White House for both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris runs directly through these states, and both have been spending a lot of time there. In 2016, Trump grabbed all 3 and won the White House. In 2020, Joe Biden flipped them blue, beating Mr. Trump. Oh, it's these states, along with Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona, that will ultimately decide the outcome of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. The magic number to remember is 200 170. That is the minimum number of electoral votes required to elect the president. We head to the state with the most electoral votes out of all the 7 key battlegrounds. Caroline Malone joins us live from Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. Caroline, voting precincts have just opened. Given all the eyes, the focus on Pennsylvania, what's it like on the ground?
Absolutely. As you say, polling stations have just opened within the last few minutes. You can probably see behind me queues of people, at least 100 people here in this district, which is the historic part of downtown central Philadelphia. Now, this is a key city for the Democrats because traditionally it's a city that is won outright by the Democrats, but out in the suburbs, it's more Republican. So if Kamala Harris has any chance of winning, she has to do incredibly well here in Philadelphia. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been campaigning on Monday in particular out in Pittsburgh and other parts of Pennsylvania, knowing that those are the key areas that he has to win if he has a chance of winning the state. As you point out there, this is a critical swing state for either candidate to win. It's incredibly hard for either of them to become president if they don't win Pennsylvania. So both of them really going all out to make sure they appeal to every voter at that last minute in the rallies on Monday. Harris, in fact, appeared at a rally on Monday night, late into the evening, 11 p.m. To thousands of people that were watching at an art museum here in Philadelphia. She said to crowds that she is excited and she's optimistic about what they can do together. Trump, on the other hand, criticizing what he sees as what would happen if Kamala Harris was to get into power. Now, there are 13 million people who live in Pennsylvania. About 2 million of them have already voted in early voting, but we won't know what happened in early voting until later on because the early voting ballots can only just today start being opened and counted. I actually visited an election counting centre on Monday, and that was a very interesting experience to see how many early voting ballots they have ready to start counting them as well. That voter turnout would be critical. There's also been a number of legal cases that have been filed against some mail-in ballots, particularly those that have made mistakes on their mail-in ballot. Supreme Court weighed in on that and decided that those mail-in ballots won't count, but the people that made mistakes on their mail-in ballot will get another chance to vote if they come to polling stations on this Tuesday. So all in all, incredibly important that both candidates get as many voters as they can, both in the city and the suburbs.
That's Caroline Malone reporting from Pennsylvania. She says a critical swing state.